It always starts slow, then it breaks you. Here are 6 reasons why fighting Du Plessis is a terrible idea. Breaking the Iron Gate. Brad Tavares had fought against Adesanya, Romero, Shabazian, and had never been finished by strikes. He was the veteran wall no prospect could climb over. But Du Plessis didn't try to climb. He crashed through it. Awkward, relentless, and impossible to slow down. Let me take you back to UFC 276, Du Plessis versus Brad Tavares. It was a stacked card. Adesanya versus Cannonier, Volkanovski versus Holloway 3. The kind of night where the lights in Vegas didn't stop at the casinos. The crowd outside T-Mobile Arena was electric, buzzing with fans in McGregor shirts and fake belts slung over their shoulders, while inside, the air felt thicker with tension and tequila. The strip was alive, but something even louder was about to explode inside the cage. And when the opening bell rang, Du Plessis looked like he didn't melt. His guard dropped after every combination. He started breathing through his mouth barely 90 seconds in. Commentators questioned his pacing. Fans online called it amateur hour. But underneath the sloppiness, something else was happening. Tavares, clean, efficient, composed, started backing up. His jab missed more than it landed. Every attempt to circle out was met with pressure, and Du Plessis, despite the awkwardness, just kept coming. His strikes weren't pretty, but they were landing. His clinch control wasn't traditional, but it was brutal. Knees, elbows, pressure, repetition, all delivered at a tempo that didn't fade. By round 3, Tavares' face told the story. Blood above the eye, nose swollen, movement gone. He didn't get the finish, but he turned Tavares' face into a GPS map. Red lines, swelling zone, and no clear direction. That night, Du Plessis shattered a reputation built over 20 UFC bouts. And the scariest part? He was still fighting with a nose that could barely pull in air. They laughed at his style until this fight. It started with a meme. Clips of Du Plessis throwing haymakers with his chin in the air, his legs stiff and no rhythm whatsoever. He looked like a 2004 backyard brawler who just discovered Monster Energy. The internet lit him up. Reddit said he moved like he was fighting off a bee swarm. Twitter joked he was Mortal Kombat on beginner mode. But here's the thing, he kept winning, and that only made people angrier. Let me take you back to UFC 264, Du Plessis versus Trevin Giles. It was the prelims of a McGregor card, which meant millions were watching. Giles was everything Du Plessis supposedly wasn't. Calm, technical, polished, a sharp striker with good footwork and clean defense. Everyone expected Dricus to get exposed on the big stage, and to be fair, the first round didn't help. He came out looking like a glitchy NPC, throwing wild punches off balance, while Giles controlled the space like he was sparring his drunk cousin at a family barbecue. Even the commentators sounded like they were prepping for a polite post-mortem. Well, it was a fun ride for Du Plessis. And then, in round 2, it happened. Giles froze, then collapsed, face down, lights out, just like that. The crowd went silent. The people who were laughing suddenly had nothing to say, because this wasn't clean technique. It wasn't crisp or textbook. It was something more dangerous. It was unpredictable, and that makes it nearly impossible to prepare for. Up next, no knockout, just a man slowly realizing he didn't want to be in there anymore. The night he mentally broke a UFC star. You don't see it often, a fighter tapping to something deeper than pain. But that night, Darren Till wasn't just defeated, he looked done. Let me take you back to UFC 282, Du Plessis versus Darren Till. From the start, Du Plessis fought like a man with a deadline. Wild pressure, takedowns, clinch chaos. He didn't let Till breathe, and worse, he didn't let him think. The game plan was simple: break the rhythm, break the man. Till tried to stay composed, but every exchange chipped away at him. His eyes kept drifting, his feet got slower, even his body language was slouching, like he knew the tide had turned and he couldn't swim against it. By round 3, it felt personal. Du Plessis dragged him to the mat, wrapped his legs around him like a trap, and squeezed with the patience of a man who already knew the ending. Tap. No blood, no brutal knockout. Just a slow, silent surrender. And that's what made it disturbing, because Du Plessis didn't win with his skill alone. He won by making a man realize, mid-fight, that he didn't want to do this anymore. Still watching? You've got the skill. Now hit subscribe. Don't fade like Till. The war you probably missed. His debut looked like the UFC accidentally grabbed the wrong guy from the locker room. Hair messed up, feet twitching, stance like he watched one highlight reel and said, "I got this." Nobody knew who Dricus Du Plessis was. Not the fans, not the commentators, maybe not even Bruce Buffer, but still something felt off. Not in a bad way, in a dangerous way. Let me take you back to UFC Fight Island 5, Du Plessis versus Marcus Perez. Perez was a weird puzzle. Flashy, unorthodox, and the type of guy who shows up to weigh-ins dressed like the Joker. No one expected a clean performance here, and Du Plessis, he delivered exactly that. Not clean. His stance looked like he learned it from a YouTube ad that starts with, "Bro, you don't need a coach." The opening seconds were pure chaos. Dricus overextended, threw wild overhands, slipped on the canvas. You'd think he was shadowboxing in Crocs, but then out of nowhere, he uncorked a short right hand that erased Marcus Perez from existence. The KO was clean, but it was everything around it that made you stop and think. He was breathing through his mouth after 30 seconds. His footwork looked like a guy trying to dance and fight at the same time. And yet, the punch landed. Not just any punch. It was placed, timed, decisive. That's when the first red flag went up. The good kind. The kind that says, wait, is this guy better than he looks? You see, Du Plessis doesn't fight pretty. He doesn't fight like someone who trained in the same gym for 10 years with a traditional coach yelling, "Keep your hands up." He fights like a man who's been in real chaos and came out knowing what actually works when rules fall apart. The MMA world didn't notice. He was still just another international signing. But behind the weird stance and wild swings was a man who understood something most fighters don't. You don't have to win rounds. You just have to make the other guy panic first. And in the next fight, panic came fast. Just not from him. He silenced the legend. There are levels in MMA, and Robert Whittaker has been the gatekeeper of greatness for years. You don't beat Whittaker unless you're elite. And even then, you probably don't beat him at all. Let me take you back to UFC 290, Du Plessis versus Robert Whittaker. At this point, Du Plessis had earned his spot, but not everyone believed it. Fans called his style reckless. Critics said he'd fold against someone polished, and Whittaker, he was the final boss without a belt. Only 2 men had ever beaten him in the middleweight division, Israel Adesanya and Wonderboy Thompson. That's it. Everyone else, they got picked apart, broken, dismissed. But Du Plessis, he came to expose something. From the opening seconds, he fought like he didn't care who Whittaker was. He walked him down, threw from ugly angles, and stuffed takedowns like it was nothing. Whittaker landed a few clean shots, but Dricus didn't flinch. He kept pressing, breaking the rhythm, turning the fight into a dogfight. And then it happened. A brutal right hand connected. Whittaker staggered, stumbled, and suddenly, the perfect technician was panic wrestling. Du Plessis smelled blood, swarmed, and dropped one of the most respected fighters in UFC history. Because for the first time in a decade, Robert Whittaker looked outclassed. And as the ref waved it off, the MMA world didn't just look at Du Plessis differently. They panicked. Now watch this video and don't forget to join our Discord.